You probably don't think you have ADHD, or at least you've never been completely sure. Maybe you looked into it once. Maybe you even took a screening test online, and the result came back somewhere in the middle. Close, but not quite there, so you just moved on. But something stayed with you. Because even without the label, normal, everyday life still feels harder than it probably should. But maybe the problem was never that simple. This is the confusing middle ground, and it is exactly where this video begins. In the clinical world, this gray area is often called subthreshold ADHD. To understand what this is, we have to look at how diagnosis actually works. Clinical diagnosis needs boundaries, but the difficulties of daily life do not always fall neatly inside them. For an adult to be diagnosed with ADHD, they generally need to check off at least 5 specific symptoms. Clinicians also need evidence that these patterns were already present before age 12, and that they are causing meaningful impairment in more than one part of life, like work, home, school, or relationships. But what happens if you only have 4 symptoms instead of 5? Or what if your symptoms are intensely clear at work, but you somehow manage to keep it together at home? You fall outside the diagnostic threshold. And for a long time, people assumed that if you didn't meet the full criteria, you were probably fine. But attention doesn't really work in clean boxes, where you either have ADHD or you have no struggle at all. It exists on a spectrum. And subthreshold ADHD sits in that gray middle space, where the struggle is real, even if the label is not always clear. And what's more surprising is, this gray zone is much more common than we think. In some studies, there were almost twice as many people with subthreshold ADHD traits as people who met the full diagnosis. So this is not a tiny group. It is a large, mostly invisible one, and it can be especially easy to miss in adult women because their symptoms often show up as inattention or mental exhaustion that are more internal rather than the hyperactive behaviors we usually associate with ADHD. So if you are sitting in this gray zone, what is the actual difference between you and someone with a formal diagnosis? Surprisingly, on a cognitive control level, the difference might be much smaller than you think. Cognitive scientists test a metric called cognitive control capacity. It basically measures your brain's ability to filter out distractions, handle conflict, and process complex information. And people in the subthreshold group show nearly the same drop in this processing capacity as people with full clinical ADHD. So your brain may have been experiencing the same kind of cognitive resistance. You may simply have more support, more structure, or more ways to compensate, which makes the cost less visible from the outside. But less visible doesn't mean less exhausting. And ironically, this is exactly why our usual solutions end up draining us even more. So if relying on willpower doesn't work, and we are stuck worrying about whether we fit a specific label or not, how do we actually move forward? Now, of course, a formal evaluation is incredibly important, especially if your struggles are causing severe anxiety, depression, or dangerous coping habits. Please seek professional support for those cases. Medicine and therapy are vital. But if you are in that gray zone, just trying to get through the week, you don't need to wait for a formal diagnosis to make your life easier. You don't need to prove you're ADHD enough before you're allowed to use some low-risk, supportive tools. So instead of asking what is wrong with me, we are going to ask what kind of support actually works for me. And that's what we're going to build next. Think about the last time you played a video game. You didn't suddenly become more disciplined when you picked up the controller, but you stayed in the game for hours. And that's because a well-designed game takes a huge chunk of executive function work off your plate. The map is visible, the next objective is marked, your inventory is organized for you. The game handles all of that in the background, so you can just focus on playing. We're gonna borrow that idea, specifically the accessibility design. A good game reduces cognitive load by making important information visible, giving every task a clear entry point, and making it easy to pick up where you left off when you drift. Your daily life rarely gives you that kind of support. So how do we actually redesign it? It comes down to 3 things. The first one is about making the invisible visible. When you're playing a game, you never have to keep the map, your health bar, your quest log, and your item locations all in your head at once. All of that lives on screen, in a head-up display or a HUD. It's always there, always visible. And because it's visible, your brain can focus on the actual playing. You could use a HUD in your daily life too. Your working memory is already stretched thin. So instead of asking it to carry everything, start moving information out of your head and into your line of sight. This is actually a well-studied therapeutic approach called externalization. And it's one of the most effective strategies for executive function support. Take your mental to-do list and write it down. Don't try to list everything out. Pick about 3 things for today. That's your quest log. Give your keys, wallet, and earbuds a fixed spot by the door. Same place every single day. That's your inventory slot. Once something loses its fixed spot, it basically disappears from your world. For a lot of people in this space, time only really exists in 2 modes, now and not now. There's no sense of how much time is left, how much has passed, or how long something will take. So you need to give time a physical shape, something your eyes can actually track. Put a physical timer or an analog clock where you'll notice it. You can also use digital tools like Toggle to help you see where your time is actually going. And when you set alarms, always give yourself an extra 10 minutes of buffer to compensate for how imprecise your internal clock can be. So the next time things feel a bit chaotic, you can ask yourself this one question. What should be on my HUD right now? What can I move out of my head and make visible? Don't ask your brain to hold what your world can hold for you. The second one is the spawn point. If you're in this space, this probably happens to you a lot. You have something you need to do. You know it matters. But it just sits in your head as pressure, as guilt, as a vague cloud of, I should really do that. And the longer it sits there, the harder it becomes to move. But a task only becomes real the moment it lands somewhere physical. It needs a first coordinate in the real world. In gaming terms, that's the spawn point, the exact spot where something finally shows up on the map. If you're someone with a lot of ideas and a lot of unfinished projects, this part matters even more. You might have some genuinely great ideas in there. They're just trapped in your head, waiting for somewhere to land. Say you've been wanting to turn your travel clips into a simple vlog or guide. You don't have to start making it yet. Just give it a folder and drop in a few clips or notes. That's your spawn point. Now you have somewhere to come back to. And sometimes a spawn point doesn't have to be a place at all. It could be another person. You've probably noticed that more pressure doesn't help you start. Telling yourself, just do it, doesn't get you to a spawn point, but a shared start signal can. That's the idea behind body doubling, a well-known strategy often used by people with ADHD. It works almost like a Bluetooth connection. When you're near someone who's focused, your brain starts to mirror their state. You borrow a bit of their concentration, and your own startup friction drops. The start becomes easier because your brain is syncing to a focused environment. This can look like working beside a friend, sitting in a library or a coffee shop where everyone's doing their own thing. Even a virtual co-working call where nobody speaks can work. In any of these settings, your brain can pick up that cue, the one that says, okay, we're starting now. So when something's been sitting in your head for too long, ask yourself, where's the spawn point? Where can this thing land for the first time? And finally, there's your playable state. Imagine your controller has input lag. Its battery is running low, and the screen keeps flickering. You wouldn't blame the player for performing badly. You'd fix the setup first. You should treat your own body the same way. When your body is underslept, overstimulated, or depleted, the task gets harder before it even begins. Sleep is usually the biggest factor here. When you're underslept, your executive function is the very first thing to drop. A regular wake-up time and some morning light can go a long way when your brain is already running on thinner margins. I talked more about what to do when you haven't had enough sleep in a previous video, which I'll link in the corner. But either way, take your sleep seriously. And if you have a demanding task coming up, it can help to give your attention a small warm-up before you ask it to perform. Like 10 minutes of walking, a bit of stretching, or just standing up and moving around. Any of these can give your body a clear signal that it's time to get ready and begin. And when your focus drifts, and it will, that's okay. Attention drifts for everyone. Instead of automatically reaching for your phone, just stretch or move around for a moment. Give your body another signal that it's time to return. So next time, when a task isn't going well, check in with yourself first. Is my state playable right now? Maybe a short walk will help you come back with a clearer head. Sometimes, your brain just needs the right conditions to do what it does best. You probably already know how focused and creative you can be when something really clicks. And these tools just make it easier to tap into that side of yourself more often. Now, let me show you what that can look like in a real day. Meet David, a freelance graphic designer living in this gray zone. He's good at his work, and his clients keep coming back, so from the outside, he seems fine. But freelancing requires him to create his own structure, and that's where things slip. He isn't short on ideas. If anything, he usually has too many. His mornings followed whatever caught his attention first. One email would turn into 6 open tabs, including camera reviews he didn't even need. By noon, the important work was untouched, and most of his mental energy had gone into unrelated content. After enough mornings like that, he decides to spend 20 minutes resetting his environment. His keys, wallet, and earbuds live in one place by the door. In his planner, he writes the day's 3 most important tasks, and every client call gets a 20-minute buffer. Once those rules are set, he follows them automatically, instead of carrying them in his head. The next morning, he gets to his desk without feeling behind. At the top of his list is a brand redesign he's avoided all week. Normally, he'd bury himself in more references and feel even more stuck. This time he thinks, fine, I'll just start a file first, let's give you a spawn point. He drops in 3 images and a rough palette, then lets himself stop there. To his surprise, once the ideas are on the screen, he starts noticing connections. One combination reminds him of old travel posters, and suddenly he can see a direction. That little spark gets him excited, and he throws himself into the work for a while. He knows that once he has a direction, he can focus. After a while though, that first burst fades. He knows an unrelated tab could make him lose the thread, so he joins a virtual co-working session to borrow a little attention. Nobody speaks, but seeing other people work helps him stay with the idea until he has a rough version. Round 4, he catches himself reaching for his phone. Normally, one quick look could cost him the rest of the afternoon. Today, he changes his mind and takes a 10-minute walk instead. When he comes back, his head feels clearer. Almost immediately, he notices what's making the design feel crowded. A few elements need to go. He takes them out, and the layout finally starts to work. By evening, the project isn't finished, but he has a concept he likes and a clear place to restart tomorrow. He can't wait to keep going. And he still has enough energy to work out, see a friend, and enjoy the evening without feeling guilty. David's adjustments were actually pretty simple. Taken together, they come down to making things visible, giving them a place to begin, and making sure your state can support what you're asking from yourself. And if you recognize yourself in David, this is the point of the whole video. You don't need a specific label to deserve a life with less friction. You don't have to prove anything about your willpower. You just need a setup that requires less of it. And to help you get started, I've created a free PDF guide. It walks you through the HUD, spawn point, and playable state, so you can set up your own version. The link is in the description. And if you know what to do, but still find yourself scrolling until the last possible minute, watch my video on self-sabotage next. It explains why that loop happens and how to interrupt it. You can click on it right here. Thanks for watching. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.